Donald J. Trump, Don Trump Jr., Eric Trump, Glenn Beck, Marjorie Taylor Greene, Jim Jordan, Larry Elder, Tim Scott, Ted Cruz, John Kennedy, General Flynn, and Bongino. Those are the names of some pretty high-profile conservatives. Why are we mentioning them? Well, we believe that they should be the number one people on our list to get some information in front of. What particular information? We've talked about child trafficking here before. We've mentioned it multiple times. We've mentioned multiple cases. And most recently, we've brought to the forefront an individual by the name of Othello Johnson and his son, who was kidnapped, as the way he puts it, federally, at the behest of some pretty high-profile people in the government.
President Barack Obama aided and assisted in the coordination of the federal kidnapping of my son.
Barack Obama fired Gerald Walpin.
The president's decision to fire a federal inspector general.
Inspector General Gerald Walpin, who investigated Mayor Kevin Johnson during the AmeriCorps sex scandal in Sacramento County.
Our top story of the early afternoon, a new push for details about the investigation into abuse allegations against Sacramento mayoral hopeful Kevin Johnson.
Officer Charleston Hartfield's body was the only police officer whose dead body was ever shown all platforms of social media.
That love and miss Yeshua so much. I just want him to come home.
They denied me due process. They denied me the opportunity to speak, and they dropped the felony charges against me.
And the next thing I know, he comes back. He's sweating. His face is wet with sweat. He grabs Joshua up in a blanket, and I didn't see them again for months.
Now, when we did this video, the traction on it seemed to become just stagnant. We couldn't really tell why. We probably attributed a little bit to maybe a little bit of the algorithm or censorship, but the real issue, we believe, is that it wasn't getting the kinds of people behind it that it should. Namely, those people. The only way we can do that, however, is with your help. And if we don't have that help, his story never gets out, and the people that were responsible for his demise and problems remain free. Now, he's talked to us about the names behind this issue. President Obama, Kamala Harris, and quite a few others, John Walsh, to name a few. Now, the kinds of things he's accusing them of, if true, are absolutely deplorable, but more so a detriment to our country. Under all of the red tape of the political arena lies one massive machine. What is that machine? The machine of child trafficking. If you remember correctly, there was a movie that came out some time ago, The Sound of Freedom, and remember how much backlash it got from the people on the left. Oh, this ain't really true, and what kind of mess is that? Why are you be promoting this kind of stuff? And you know why they did that? Because they themselves were behind most of the things that were going on in that movie. Why are we making this video and calling out the names we called out? The biggest reason is that we want you guys to help us out, and in turn, help Othello and his son out. Because really, we can't get much traction here. The only way for us to get this story, and hence the people responsible, accountable, is by you getting this story in front of those names. You see, because if they hear about it, the only thing they have left to do is to either investigate or be silent. Here's a twofold thing. If they're silent, it proves that they really do not care. If they speak on it, more light is brought to it, and we can get to the bottom and find out exactly who's behind this machine. But without you, that remains a stagnant issue. If the story doesn't compel you as to what his son went through, I'll break it down for you just a little bit to help emphasize how crazy this is. A man who had full custody of his son was arrested for kidnapping said son. Now, once he was arrested for kidnapping said son, charges were not fully filed because obviously it was his kid. But in the meantime, the kid was removed from his custody without the proper laws being followed, at the behest of certain people, like we mentioned, Kamala Harris, number one person in that line. Fast forward a couple of years, son manages to escape, gets a hold of his father, and gets back home. Charges were filed against Kamala Harris, and nothing has come of it because every time something pops up, The people that were behind filing it somehow end up either disappeared or their life ends up being snuffed from them. Coincidence, I'm sure, but probably not. Now, suppose this. Suppose we got some of these big names we mentioned to look into this. Some of these names have federal places behind them where they can actually get details we at Too Strong cannot get. They can set things in motion that we cannot. But they do not know, or if they do know, they're doing nothing about it. And the only way we can find that out is through you. We are making this video in an effort that maybe some of you out there who have not shared this story yet, do so. An hour. That's all we're asking for you in a day. Send it to everyone on this list. Bombard their inbox, bombard their Twitter page, their Instagram, their TikTok, the government emails, all of it. Flood their feed with this. Because hear me out, if this is true, if what he is saying is true, can you imagine the countless millions of children that have been through the same thing that his son has but did not get the chance to escape? Can you imagine how many millions of dollars of your hard-earned cash has been put towards this kind of nefarious act? And then they get away with it and then ask you at the next election cycle to vote for them, in order for them to go back into office to do the same thing to another million children. Your voice might be the only thing stopping them, and your silence might be the only thing keeping them going. If you're unsure whether or not your voice has any power, the only way to find that out is to test it. Get a hold of these people. They are the biggest voices in the conservative movement, and they're the ones that have said before that they are against the harm to children. But here we have a story that actually has a court case, dockets, details, receipts, and a victim, an actual victim, both the parent and the child. And no one's doing anything about it. We leave the challenge to you, and we can only hope that you'll rise to the occasion. If the thought of child trafficking really does affect you the way you say it does, we anticipate this particular video and the story of Othello Johnson to go absolutely viral. But if once it does, nothing is done, we will find one very important thing out, that the people that say they care really are lying to you. And in all actuality, the only people that can stop it would be me and you.